been 3 weeks. Can't believe I've kept up this video malarkey. In this week's video, we're going to talk about the 3 most important settings you will adjust on a regular basis. So, in your camera, you're going to adjust 3 settings on a regular basis. That is aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. I was saying it wrong in the last one. I think I was calling it iOS. Quite funny, really. Anyway, so understanding these is a bit like a math equation. You know, if you can work out light equals aperture, shutter speed, ISO, then that will give you the specific exposure. So before we get into these sweet areas, we're going to talk about the dial on the top of your camera. It's manual, AV, and TV. Now, AV means aperture priority, and TV means shutter speed priority. So, what do you want to shoot in? Well, basically, to start with, shoot in AV or TV. Now, manual controls all areas of the camera, but you don't need to do that to begin with. If the subject is static, shoot in AV. If the subject is a moving object, such as a person or a car, shoot in TV. Now, AV controls your aperture. Now, what is an aperture? Well, it decides how big or how small the hole will be in the center of your camera. So the bigger the aperture, maybe a 2.8 or a 4, it means more light is let into the camera. At a higher one, maybe a 16 or a 22, it means that the aperture is small, which means less light. That is the basic principle. Moving on to our shutter speed. A shutter speed is how fast your shutter closes. The quicker it is, the less light. The longer it is, the more light. But you see, the longer the shutter is open, the more you get what's called camera shake. So if you're holding it, there's only a specific amount of shutter that you can go down to before it shakes the camera and blurs your image. Once you understand these 2 principles, you can build the equation in your head as you're shooting, which means you are able to take better well exposed photos for those situations. So with shutter speed, you're going to have what's called seconds and like split of a second. So you get maybe 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Now you cannot hold these in your hand without camera shake. What you can do is hold without camera shake from maybe 1/20 of a second or 1/30 of a second. Now I've done a chart which is at the end, will explain what shutter speeds you should use for what specific subjects. What is ISO? Now ISO is an adjustment in the camera that compensates for the amount of light let in that can't be adjusted from shutter speed or aperture. See, the downside with this is you get what's called noise, and noise is grain in your photo. Now it all depends on how old your camera is or how good your camera is, depends how much the ISO can go up and down. Now sometimes the camera might say it can do 2800 ISO, but actually the likelihood is it won't endure that when you take the photo. It can do that, but your photos will not be any good. So really the principle again comes down to, well, what can your camera endure? Well, you need to test that yourself. The main principle is to keep it as low as possible at all times. The lower the ISO, the less noise you get in your photos, the sharper and crispier and more delicious they will look. What I've done here is I've wrote down the most common subjects that you would shoot as a photographer and put down the shutter speed you should use if you want to freeze them and make them look natural, or maybe blur them. Maybe like a car light or maybe some water, you want it to look blurred. These are basic principles of where the shutter speed should be. I'll zoom in and maybe you want to screenshot it, write them down for yourself and go and practice with these, because it will help you to understand where your shutter should be. You can go higher or lower. So what I mean by that is if you're going to freeze a subject, then use, say for instance with fast water, 1/250, but you can also go higher, maybe 1/300, maybe 1/400. You decide. If you want to blur fast water, you use 2 seconds or higher, maybe 5 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe you even go to bulb. So what I've done here is I've wrote down from a 2.8 f-stop or aperture to a 22 aperture. Now what I'm trying to illustrate here is if you have a 2.8 aperture, the main subject is in focus and the background are blurred. And then when you go from f2.8, the higher you go, the more all of your subject or all of your photo will be in focus. Some cameras are only able to go to f4 instead of 2.8, but that's the lowest it will go, so that will be where you want to try and get that main subject in focus. So that's what the f-stop means. When it's got an f and it's got 2.8 or f4, it's talking about the aperture, how far or how low it can go down. But I hope these were able to help you, these principles behind what ISO is, aperture and shutter speed. Use these to build the basis of your photography. I'm going to maybe make a different series next week, try and maybe go on Lightroom, or maybe talk about what I do when I'm in the field, or how I do locations. I want to do some story times about my travels and places I've been. We're making a new series called Postcards, and the postcards is like B-rolls of where we've been, maybe like what we did before with the Thailand one. We've got one coming out for Scotland. So yeah, these are what we're going to do. At the end of this video, there's 3 accounts that I really like this week. I've been looking at their work, I've been liking their photos, and so I hope you like them. The description of them are down below if you want to go and follow them. Go on Instagram and click the links below to find them. And if you want to be featured next week, then use that hashtag on Instagram, and so that I can pick your account. And I go on there daily and look at them, and I like the photos I see. So I'm really happy and grateful for what people are doing. And yeah, I love seeing your work. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't, and like the video, and I'll see you next week. Enjoy.